So it's officially November, and officially November means it's also officially NANOWRIMO. Now, if you're not like me, a nerd who was homeschooled for all of high school, then you might not know what NANOWRIMO is. NANOWRIMO is National Novel Writing Month. It takes place in November, and the goal is basically to write a novel in a month. It's kind of like a way for people who want to be writers to group together and try writing all together at the same time. It's like a massive bonding experience all across the entire country. As I said before, National Novel Writing Month takes place in November, so NaNoWriMo also takes place in November, and the whole purpose is to start a brand new novel November 1st, and then by November 30th completely finish that novel. However, finishing the novel doesn't actually mean like finishing the novel. NaNoWriMo is really just to get your first draft written beginning to end. So no editing, no rewrites. If you like change the name of your character halfway through your book, you don't change that. It's kind of just like you start and you keep going and you don't look back. The whole goal of NaNoWriMo is just to get your thoughts onto paper, because a big struggle for a lot of writers is to actually take what's in their brain and just put it on something, just get it written somewhere. So NaNoWriMo is just like a way to help combat that. So to actually technically write a novel, you have to write at least 50,000 words. If it's under 20,000 words, it's considered a short story. If it's anywhere between 20,000 words and 49,999, then it's actually technically a novella. So in order to win or complete your first draft for your novel, you have to write over 50,000 words. Because you're trying to write 50,000 words over the span of only 30 days, NaNoWriMo actually has goals daily that you're supposed to hit. You're supposed to write approximately 1,667 words a day, and if you do that, you will end up reaching 50,000 words by the end of the month, which then technically you have written a novel. Breaking it up into smaller chunks like that makes this feel like way more doable. A lot of essays for English classes are about 1,000 words, and while that might seem like not a fun time and kind of hard while you're in that English class, if you're actually writing something you want to be writing and you're really having a fun time and being really creative about it, 1,500 words goes by really fast. As mentioned before, I was homeschooled and a weird little nerd child, so I learned about NaNoWriMo from like a church group. So I actually started doing NaNoWriMo in 2017 when I was still a teenager. They give you a nifty little certificate every time you win. And another neat little tidbit of information about me is my mom fucking hates that I like writing and routinely tried to crush my dreams. So even though I did technically do NaNoWriMo 2017 and 2018, and the fun little camps that they have in between where you don't have to write 50,000 words, but it's just kind of like a fun activity you can do while you're waiting for November to come back around, I ended up not doing NaNoWriMo for a few years in a row because my mom made me feel like I was stupid for wanting to do it, and also then I moved out of my parents' house and had real life to deal with. Jobs, bills, etc. I also lost all the login information to my previous NaNoWriMo account, so when I decided to go back to this last year, 2021, I had to make a new account. It's really not that big a deal because I actually have most of the like fancy certificates that they give you from a lot of my previous years. I don't think all of them, but a lot of them. And the one I have from last year is just a screenshot from my phone because I didn't have a laptop at the time. But yeah, I definitely wanted to do it again this year. And I want to show you guys the process of how I prep for NaNoWriMo. Prep work for NaNoWriMo obviously doesn't include any actual writing. That would be cheating, which I don't mind if you cheat at NaNoWriMo. Some people are like really upset if you cheat at all for NaNoWriMo. I don't care, but some people can be like real dicks about it. Also, I can't remember if it was 2018, 2017, 2019. At some point when I was still a teenager, they did this really cool thing where the website itself was like linked with a video game, and every time you added to your words in NaNoWriMo, it would help like enhance your character in the video game. And in the video game you would have like bosses and like battles to where the whole NaNoWriMo group as a whole could help attack the monster by adding to their word total. That was really cool. I do not remember the name of the video game, or else I would see if it was still a thing, but that was pretty neat. That was a fun time. We're gonna go through the process of me setting up my NaNoWriMo shit for this year. So this is my little username, so you guys can go follow me if you want to, but it's whatever. You can have writing buddies, where you can like help keep each other company and like giving each other encouragement and that kind of stuff. There's groups, so you can like be a part of like a group of people, and again it's like a way to encourage each other and like have a sense of community. My profile is really boring because I never know what to write for bios, but what's most important is projects. Here it says member since October 15, 2021. Again, this is because I lost all the login information for my old profile. And I only have my project from last year because I lost all my info. But you can see kind of how it works. So the title for the book I was working on last year is called 0 to 100. The genres it would be included under are romance, LGBT, and young adult. I just barely got over 50,000 words, but you can see I did actually complete it and I did technically win. If you click into it, this is just like an assigned cover that they gave me, but you can see like the summary and like an excerpt if you want to add it. You can edit details, edit cover. You can see the goals, but now we're going to announce my project for this year. So we're going to go to announce new project with this little pop-up. And since it knows you're doing NaNoWriMo, a lot of the information is actually already filled out for you. Like I was talking about the fun little in-betweens called NaNoWriMo camps that they have during the rest of the year. For that kind of stuff, they let you put in all your information because you're kind of setting your own goals. But if you're participating in NaNoWriMo, like the whole event in November, those goals are already set for you because of the way NaNoWriMo works. Alright, so now it's time to get into the nitty-gritty. So for the name of my project, I don't have like a title for sure picked out right now, but I do have a working title. And whenever I have a working title, I just kind of put what the working title is and then in parentheses write working title. I do this mostly so I don't confuse myself down the line if I do decide on a title, but it's not the title that my working title was, and I just find this like project listed somewhere and I'm like, what is this? Project title right now is going to be prepping because November has not started yet. When November rolls around, we'll change this to in progress. You can switch your privacy. I don't really care because I don't have any buddies, so it doesn't matter. And we're doing a novel, but you can see there's like a bunch of different options you can do. So while NaNoWriMo really started out as strictly national novel writing month, they've really like broadened their horizons. And if you're really interested in sticking to the rules very specifically, if you pick something like a script, they actually have specific rules if you want to win for a script. If you don't really care about following the rules, then it's not that big a deal. But if you do care, there are rules for you to follow even if you're not writing a novel. I am, however, writing a novel, ? I'm not 100% sure if this story idea will span a novel. This could be a novella type thing, but I'm aiming for novel. So we're going to move on to our goal. And this is what I was saying earlier. Since we're doing NaNoWriMo and not one of the camps or just like a fun side project, all this information is already written for us because you can't really change it because this is the goal of NaNoWriMo. So we don't have to change any of this, so we can just go on to details. And this is the fun part. Genres. So the novel I want to work on this year is actually part of a bigger series. This bigger series is set way far in the future. There is one family that kind of rules over the country because they have found a way to enhance themselves or give themselves basically magic powers. Think of like mutants from the X-Men, but only one family has the powers. So this family is now in charge of everything because they have powers and literally can force anybody to do anything. But the novel I'm going to be working on at this point is going to be kind of a side quest for different characters. And because it's like not exactly science fiction, but not exactly fantasy, I never know which one to put. I usually just go with fantasy because even though there are science fiction elements in it, I don't think there's enough science fiction-iness in it to qualify. I don't know. Honestly, I think genres in books make it harder to decide what to read, but that's a personal opinion and a rant for another day. They even have a genre for fan fiction, which I think is really fun. I would have won NaNoWriMo a million times over if I had counted how many words I wrote for fan fiction when I was in middle school. I'm gonna add thriller and suspense. I don't know if it would really count, but I don't know what else to market it as because it's not plain fantasy, and usually I try and add 2 to 3 genres to like really narrow it down. Now we get to do the summary of our novel. I'm not going to bore you with the details on writing my own summary because I don't have it ready in my head, so it's going to take me a minute to come up with it. But if you just feel like you have to know what I'm writing about, my profile is public, you can just find me and read it for yourself, but I'm going to take a minute to write my summary. Alright, so I have my summary all written now. This book is based a lot around dreams, which is actually pretty funny because this kind of concept came to me in a dream. And just like that, our novel is announced. And now November 1st, which has already happened by the time this video come out, but for me it has not happened yet. It is currently October 30th. We can start actually writing and then starting our word count. And we can just click on it. We can see the cover that they gave us because I selected that it was a fantasy. They gave me a fantasy cover. But you can like add your own cover if you want to. And then we can click. We can read the summary on the back. I don't have an excerpt yet because I obviously haven't written anything, but you can add in an excerpt. We have our goals, which of course is our 50,000 words. And then we have badges. So for your badges, some of them are actually self-assigned, but a lot of them are kind of like like write 1 day, write 2 days in a row, write 3 days in a row, write 21 days in a row. So you have a lot of badges that are kind of like, as you do NaNoWRIMO, you will get this badge. But then we also have the ones that you assign yourself. And these badges are more like, what style of writing do you do? And also kind of like, how is your writing going? So for example, you can be a planner, a pantster, or a planster. What that means is, do you plan out your story beforehand? Do you just kind of raw dog it? Or do you do a mix of the both? Now, when I was a teenager, I was definitely a pantster. I just kind of like sat down and started writing with no plan whatsoever. Nowadays, since I got shit to do and I can't just do whatever the fuck I want, I'm definitely more of a planner, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. I'm also going to give myself this badge, incognito. This just means you write in weird spots. Basically, not a cafe and not your house. I'm one of those people that definitely writes like on my break at work, so I'm gonna give myself that badge. They also have a badge for backing up your writing, which I like to give myself just because I always write in Google Docs. I don't like writing in Word or any like word processing system. I love writing in Google Docs because I can then access it from my phone and also any computer I happen to be using. So I don't think it technically counts as backing up, but I definitely will never lose my work unless I lose my login to my account. There's also like one for making yourself cry while you're writing, one for a eureka moment, and you can like just go through and decide which one of these that you feel like you should be able to give yourself. And that's just some like fun little things to help get you in the spirit. They have writing resources, they have a community where you can go in like forums and you can find groups, but that's just kind of like the fun stuff. So until November actually starts, that's kind of it for the website. But now I'm going to show you how I prep for Nano, because I don't have time to not be prepared at this point in my life, because if I have 15 minutes to sit down and write, that 15 minutes has to be taken to sit down and write, not to get ready to write, because by the time I'll be ready to write, my time will be up and I'll have to go back to work. So like I said, I use Google Drive for pretty much everything. So I'm just going to create a new folder, and I'm going to create a folder for the book we're working on. In this folder, I'm going to create a document, and in this document, we're going to do our outline. I'm going to open up a different file for a different book that I have already outlined, and I'm just going to steal that outline. So this is how I typically do an outline. We have our 5 W's: who, what, where, when, why. This is basically giving the biggest overarching blanket of the story that we can. This kind of stuff like reminds us of where the summary is. For example, if I'm writing a story in the desert, randomly stumbling upon a forest doesn't really make a lot of sense. Remembering who our characters are, how I spelt their name, what their relationship is to other people. Have they met before? Have they not met yet? Is this the first time this character is meeting another character? So our 5 W's are for when you're just starting out writing, making sure we have all our information together. A lot of times when you start writing out a story, you have an idea, but not necessarily a story ready to go. So something that can help you manufacture a story is completing these 7 sentences. So this is called it's either the Disney or the Pixar framework for how to write a story. Basically, all Pixar/Disney stories or movies follow this very similar train of thought. So this similar train of thought can help you get a story that has like a complete thread, a complete arc, and not just a series of things happening, but actually having like a story with a beginning, middle, and end. So you just complete these 7 sentences, and by doing this, you have a natural arc in your story. In all honesty, this specific arc would not make sense for the story I'm working on, so I'm probably going to skip this part. But then the next thing we do is we write 20 to 25 things that need to happen in the story. Basically, these are your plot points. They don't necessarily have to translate to what your chapters are going to be. This helps to get your story progression in order and also make sure you're not missing something important. This is going to help keep you from just rambling. This can really help keep you on track to make sure we're hitting those plot points. This can help with adding in a twist to your story. You can put that at like 22, 23, and then build up earlier on in your list to help your foreshadowing or help building to that twist. This part is legitimately an outline. Like when you have to outline papers for high school, this is our outline for our story. Then after we have those 20 to 25 things, like our specific plot points, I also like to go in and write our 5 W questions for each one of those plot points. This helps just like bulk out that plot point, what needs to happen in order to get us to the next plot point. And then by the time you have that done, you might end up writing like a small paragraph for each of your plot points, and then you'll be like really ready to go to write an entire chapter or an entire scene based around those plot points. Of course, you would want to wait till it's actually November and NaNoWRIMO is actually a thing to do that part, but then after you're done writing complete scenes or complete chapters around each plot point, then it's not that difficult to just connect them, and then you have a completed rough draft. So while I was getting ready for NaNoWRIMO, I was actually heavily debating on doing a different book. So I actually have all the prep work for a different book already done, so I'm going to show you some of the extra prep work that I do that is not included in Google Docs in this handy little binder. So what I did for this is I took my outline, I took those 25 things that we were talking about earlier, and I kind of wrote that mini paragraph that we were talking about. Not like a complete scene or anything, but just like a few sentences explaining what would be happening in this scene and how it makes sense to connect to the next scene. I actually ended up with 28 of my plot points. But something else I did is I actually grouped them together in ways that made sense to make chapters. So I have about 3 or 4 scenes / plot points per each of these little tabs, which symbolizes one chapter. So this book has about 28 plot points and 8 chapters. Like I said, I got all this prep work done, but I actually decided not to do this one because, in all honesty, that one for some reason is like super daunting to me. That one has been prepped and ready to go for like months now, but I just haven't gotten started on it, and I don't know what it is about it. There's some mental hurdle that I can't get over, and I dreamt about this one recently, and I was like, this one's fresh in my mind, I'm raring to go, might as well just do this one. So I'll fill out my outline, and I might or might not do like a similar binder type thing for this one. We'll have to see how I feel about it, because it does start in 2 days and I don't know if I have time to do like a whole binder. But my final tip for actually winning NaNoWRIMO and writing a full novel in a month is actually something that I did not do when I was in high school because I thought it would be considered cheating. When I was in high school, I used pen and paper for a lot of my writing. Worst idea I ever had. I would never do that again. And when I stopped doing pen and paper, obviously I would just type everything in Google Docs. Not the worst, but also very time consuming. So what I do nowadays is I actually do voice memos. I do speech to text. And no, it is not always accurate. In fact, most of the time it is inaccurate. But you can get a lot of words down in a very short amount of time. I don't think I know of anybody who can type faster than they can talk. So by using your phone or your computer or whatever to take what you're saying and turn it into words, then taking that, putting it in your Google Doc and fixing it, because it's never right, you do have to take the time to fix it. Your 15-minute writing session can go from 2 paragraphs to like 3 pages in no time. This is really the only way I could possibly win NaNoWRIMO these days, since I work 2 jobs and spend practically no time to myself anymore. But it's not like there's no work going into this. You still have to come behind the speech to text and correct anything it messed up. You're still gonna have to edit your work. You're still gonna revise your work, and there's gonna be more drafts. This is just the best and fastest way to get words onto paper. And honestly, that's the whole point of NaNoWRIMO, is just to get words onto paper, because once they're onto paper, once you actually have a first draft, you're way more likely to actually revise and edit it. I mean, I'm not. I don't think I've ever gone back and looked at any of my NaNoWRIMO projects, mostly because I wrote them as a teenager, and then I grew up, and now I look back at them and I go, but if you just keep these ideas that are floating around your head in your head, then what's the point? But this is probably what I'll be doing every chance I get, every 10-minute break, every 15-minute break at work. Every time I'm a little bit early for work in the car, I'll be talking into my phone. I'm super excited to be excited about writing again. My mom definitely did her best to like kill that interest in me when I was a teenager, and it definitely did affect me for a few years. But I really want to get back into writing, and NaNoWRIMO is a really good way to do it. If you want to sign up for NaNoWRIMO, it's only 2 days into the month. You can definitely catch up. Just go to nanowrimo.org, NANOWRIMO.org. You can create an account, you can follow me, we can be buddies, we can write with each other, and then next year we can do it all again. But that's all I have for you all this time. I hope this was interesting, and I hope you learned something new about something you'd never heard of before. Hopefully I'll be able to actually win Nano this year, but we'll see, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye.